welcome you here. If you're new, we have a Facebook page called SNL that you can look up on Facebook where you could like and subscribe and get connected with us there. And we just welcome you and thank you for coming. I'm going to give you over to David Beza.
Woo! The grade 7 brain in me heard you say toiletries and take a peep, and I heard toilet and pee, and I was like, Jessica, how did I get a wagon wheel? This is fantastic, best service ever. I kind of feel like I'm interrupting you guys having your faces melted by that band. That was quite fun, and so I apologize that you have to listen to me as I come back after they're doing more something about that. I want to commend all of you on the stage. There's something about, and you guys know this, there's something so beautiful about faithfulness. And it's something I probably haven't learned until I'm 50 years old now, and so I've seen people be faithful, and it's really beautiful. Because, you know, people can bring, like, they can, like, be amazing for spurts, short spurts. That's my specialty. I'm a sprinter. I don't have a lot of stamina when it comes to being wonderful. I usually do something good, then I'll be awful for a little bit, and then come back and do something good. But that faithfulness is really beautiful. And what we got to be a part of, what we got to witness here, was faithfulness, years and years of relationship and partnering in ministry, and now a really healthy see you later. And that's what it's going to be, a see you later. I fully expect Rick, and by the way, Heidi is not, she hasn't passed away. I don't know if they explained that very well. She's very much alive. She's just not feeling well today and couldn't be here today. But I fully expect to see a Rick and Heidi appearance somewhere down the line. And we commend you, we commend the band for your faithfulness in serving in ministry. They don't get paid for this. They put hours of practice that you never get to see, so they sound like they did tonight. And their hearts are for it. They love you, they love the Lord, and they love leading in worship. You've done such a good job. I really appreciate it. All right. Today, I'm not going to do as much. Last week was a little bit more teaching. This time, I've got an idea that two different ideas that I really want to share with you. And one of them is building off of what happened last week. And those of you know who you were. We put out to you, asked you if you wanted to become a child of God, if you wanted to be adopted into God's family. And many of you put your hands up. And so last week was your first week as a Christian. And if you've lived to tell about it, give yourself a little pat on the back. Well done. So today is kind of your first Saturday night, where now we're going to start to build into it. I've got an idea that I think is going to be useful for you as a young Christian. And so I want to share that today. But you've got to forgive me. If you go to the next slide, please, Christine. I've come up with the worst title for this message. I call it Party Jesus. And it's like, okay, and you're going to see why it's a terrible title. And when I think of Party Jesus, I kind of think of, you ever seen Talladega Nights? And you know the prayer at the beginning, when Ricky Bobby's praying, and they're all talking about, like, what Jesus do you like to pray to? And Ricky Bobby likes to pray to baby Jesus. And they've all got their, well, Party Jesus is not a part of this movie. It's not a different characteristic of Jesus. But we're actually going to see Jesus in two very public places. Places that you might not see regularly in the narrative of this Bible. Okay, and so what I want to do is I'm going to read through, might have a couple comments, then I'm going to pause and talk about what we see. So we move to, this is John. I'm not going to go into all the talk. I talked last week about different gospel authors. Remember, John is the beloved disciple. He was Jesus' probably closest friend on earth. And he's all about, he just wants you to know him. He just wants you to know how amazing this Jesus is. He wants you to fall in love with him. He wants you to follow him, to pursue him. And so it's from his perspective that we read in John chapter 2, and it starts verses 1 to 5. Goes like this. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee. I'm going to pause there, then I'm going to be dirty for a second. When I was a kid, I think I got it in my head that when we talked about the Bible, it was kind of almost like this Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings type fictitious place. Like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. But you can go on Google Maps and you can zoom into this region and you can find, it's actually not labeled as Cana anymore, but you can find this space and I'll help you find it. If you're reading about the life of Jesus, it's almost all centered around one section of land. At the top, you've got a picture of the Sea of Galilee, an almost roundish sea, and it's full of life. And then basically this winding river goes south, and just to give you a bigger picture, I don't know if you know the Mediterranean Sea, but so if you got the Mediterranean Sea, you got Africa here, you got Europe up here, Asia over here, and just kind of to the eastern side of the Mediterranean Sea, you've got the Sea of Galilee, and then you got the Jordan River, very famous for where the baptisms were, the Jordan River, and then that all pours into what's called the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea is called the Dead Sea because it's so low, and it's like below sea level, and it's so full of salt. And I've never done this. I actually did this in a different place in Senegal in Africa, where there's such a high salt content you float, like you can literally just fall asleep almost on top of the water. And that's what the Dead Sea is like. So this region of Cana is just, if you've got the Mediterranean Sea here, if you've got the Sea of Galilee here, it's just west of the Sea of Galilee. And that's where Cana is. So, okay, I'm going to get it in. On the third day, there's a wedding at Cana in Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there, Mary. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Now this sounds terrible. I'm really hoping that the translation catches the tone a little bit wrong." He says, "Woman," and my mom's here, I would never say that to my mom. "Woman," just, there's no way. If I did, I would duck right after because I know she'd come after me. But "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." And I love how she just like totally ignores what he says. His mother said to the servants, "Just do whatever he tells you." And he's going to do something. Well, on the next slide it says, "Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons of water." Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. The master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to them, "Everyone serves the good wine first, when the people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." So this is the story of the first public miracle that Jesus does. He turns water into wine. Okay, put a bookmark in that thought. I'm going to tell you another story. This is now John 2, verse 13 to 16. Now Jesus has traveled from Galilee, off the coast of Galilee, Cana, about 150 kilometers south to Jerusalem. I Google mapped it, and if you're walking, they say it's going to take about 31 hours, but they could be following some roads and stuff that weren't there in this day. So you're talking about several days' journey. So that'd be 31 walking hours to get down to Jerusalem. But there was a reason they were going to Jerusalem, and we see it right at the very beginning here. The Passover is this celebration. I don't know how far I want to get into this, but it's a celebration, this Jewish tradition where they celebrate Passover. Do you remember the story when Moses was in Egypt and he went to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go"? Remember, the Israelites were under the rule of the Egyptians. They were slaves to Egypt. They did all the heavy lifting. God told Moses, "Tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Let the Israelites go. We're done being your slaves. We're leaving Egypt." Pharaoh said, "No." And so they sent plague after plague, little frogs, flies, and all these things. And then the last one was the angel of death. And Israel was told to paint blood on the would celebrate and remember this day of Passover every year. It was a big deal, and they would flock to Jerusalem, the holy city. That's where we find ourselves. So the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went out of Jerusalem. In the temple he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." All right, that's the second story of what I'm going to refer to as Party Jesus. So we can just camp on the next slide if you don't mind. I want to talk to you. And here's my lesson. This is the idea that I really feel is important to get. This is something we can do wrong quite often when we're reading the Bible. Sometimes if we read the Bible and we give such focus to a small part of the Bible, we can actually pull something out of that that isn't true. I'm going to give you two examples. First example would be Jesus turning the water into wine. Okay, so some things we can know. That means they drank all the wine. This was quite a party. They cleaned house when it came to wine. There was nothing left, nothing but water left. And Jesus felt like it was worth doing his first miracle to restock the shelves and have enough wine for the party. If we read this story, if we read this passage in isolation, if we focus only on that story, we can think, wow, Jesus loved to party hard. He liked his drink, and he was willing to use his supernatural powers to make this party just hot. Okay? But the more we read about Jesus, the more we know he's about so much more than what we would pull out in that thing. And it's a dangerous thing we do. Sometimes when we read the Bible, we give such focus to something so specific, but we don't take note of what we know to be true about Jesus as a person, or his character, or the character of God. So here's my lesson. The Bible is meant to be read cover to cover, and not necessarily starting in Genesis and reading all the way through, and that's the only way you're allowed to read. But we need to immerse ourselves in the whole story. Jesus becomes this amazing part of the whole narrative of the Bible, starting with the creation of everything and ending in a book of the Bible talking about things that haven't even happened yet. We need to understand the whole story. We need to familiarize ourselves, we need to learn and immerse ourselves in the whole story so we don't get tripped up in cases like this where we think, oh, Jesus really likes wine. In the same way, the next story is about Jesus. It looks like he's losing his mind. He braids these cords together to make a whip. And he just starts beating on people because they're selling stuff. And again, if we read this the wrong way, if we get hyper-focused and just isolate this one part of the Bible, we can think that Jesus has a real temper problem. Or maybe we'll think that Jesus is anti-capitalism or something like that. Maybe he is a little bit, but anyways, that's not the point. We can think of this Jesus as this lunatic clearing the temple with this violent weapon. But if we pull back, we see the heart behind what Jesus does. Here's where I want to transition to the next bit of scripture. The heart behind what he's doing. I think I need to explain this a little better. So in Jerusalem, they had the temple. And what you need to understand about God in this time. So Jesus, he changes everything. Before Jesus, and actually even at this point, before Jesus dies for us, God was in heaven. And he would come, and his presence would come to one place. At first, it was this traveling tabernacle, this tent they would set up. You know Indiana Jones, the Ark of the Covenant? That's a real thing. Well, not the movie, but the movie is real, but it's not about things. The Ark of the Covenant was this thing that God commanded people to build so his presence could come into that ark. And then eventually in Jerusalem, they were allowed to build a temple, a more permanent place where Jesus would come. And there would have to be this curtain, this, not like a curtain, like this these thick drapes that would protect people from where God was. His presence was in the temple. And before Jesus, if you did something wrong, which is all of us all the time, you had to pay a price. And the price was often, you have to get like a dove or a pigeon, and it would have to be sacrificed. The blood would have to be shed for the sin that you committed. Sometimes it would have to be a lamb that would have to be sacrificed. That was the payment. Blood was the payment for our sin. We'll get to the good news in a little while, but so we had this system set up where you needed doves, you needed lambs in order to be forgiven for your sins. So some good businessman, but really a twisted, evil person, came up with the idea, well, if people need doves, pigeons, and lambs in order to be free from sin, why don't I start a business where I start selling doves and pigeons and lambs? I'm going to make a fortune. And I'm going to set up shop right where they have to come to do their sacrifice. And what they ended up doing is they created and actually learned about this idea in recovery. So when we think about Salvation Army is a low barrier place to get into. You're able to get into there. Hope for Freedom is a little bit higher barrier. You've got to be sober to get into Hope for Freedom. The kingdom should be the lowest barrier. Nobody should be held back from getting into the kingdom. And yet, because these guys were selling the stuff that you needed to get into the kingdom, now you had to have money to get to heaven. If you were too poor to afford the pigeons and the sheep and stuff like that you needed to sacrifice, you couldn't do your sacrifice, which means you couldn't be forgiven, which means you couldn't go to heaven. These people selling the stuff became a barrier between the people and the Father, and Jesus was having none of that. And that's why he was so upset and made his whip and beat the snot out of those guys and drove them out of the temple. You actually see he does it again later on as Jesus is knowingly coming to the end of his life. Jesus enters Jerusalem again. Remember at the Easter story, you've probably heard it. He comes into Jerusalem on a donkey. Everybody's worshiping him because he's the King of Kings. He's the King of the Jews. And he comes in and he sees the same thing set up in the temple. And just on a Bible note, here we read this in John. This talks about the first temple cleansing. The second account is only found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But Jesus does it again. He drives them out of the temple. He doesn't want any barrier between the people and the Father who loves them. Okay? With that in mind, let's read a little bit further into John. This is now John chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. And I think I got like 2 pages here to read, and then we'll talk about that. You're going to recognize one of these verses pretty soon. There was a man to the Pharisees. Remember, the Pharisees were the people who did everything by the book. They would be very respected people, very religious people. They would always be washed up nice and clean. Their kids would be well behaved. Their dog wouldn't poop on other people's lawns. They followed all the rules. Okay? But they were so full of pride because they were so good. And they would look down their noses at other people. That was their reputation. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus. He was a ruler of the Jews. Thanks for laughing. This man came to Jesus by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher come from God. For no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with you. Jesus answered him, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Now, let me pause there for a second. Remember, and this is going to another story, but you've heard of King David? When King David was chosen, we learned this bit about God. we learned that, like, when we look for the next leader, if I were to scan the room and find somebody who I think would be a really good leader, I'm going to look at your outside. I'm going to see what my eyes are drawn to you. You've got a fantastic beard, by the way. I'm very jealous. And so my eyes are on you. I choose you in a heartbeat to lead us. So I don't know. I'm distracted by his great beard. But man will be distracted by great beards. But God teaches us a lesson here. He says, when I look at people, I look at the heart. I can see everything about them. Okay? Jesus, when he speaks, because Jesus is God. Confusing concept, but he is God. And when he sees Nicodemus, he sees really the root and the heart of what he's trying to talk about here. And he, even though he asked Jesus the question, Jesus answered, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." And what he's doing is he's cutting through all of the poop. He's cutting through everything that Nicodemus thought would get him to heaven. All of his good behavior that he thought would earn his way to heaven. And Jesus says, if you're not born again, you cannot see the kingdom of heaven. And Nicodemus, his mind is blown. He said to him, how can a man be born when he's old? This is gross. Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus answered, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. And what he's saying is, unless you do what many of you did last week, admit to your brokenness, admit to your sinfulness, believe that Jesus paid the price for all of your sin, and commit your life to following Jesus. Unless you do that, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. It doesn't matter if you've got all your shirt buttons on the right way and your kids behave well. Those aren't the those aren't the things that earn your way to heaven. You have to follow Jesus. That's the way to heaven. This is the verse you guys are going to recognize. John 3:16-18. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this can be a really frustrating, let me be real with you, and I might offend some of you right now. This can be a really frustrating, maybe even offensive last section. Because there are some really, really good people who will not enter the kingdom of God. The Bible tells us that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That nobody gets to the Father except for through him. And it seems like it's exclusive. It feels like, well, what if I really worship another God really well? Okay? What if I really put my faith into this other God and I do all the things I'm supposed to do? Doesn't God love me enough that I'll just get to heaven? It's not about what we do. Okay? I could put all of my faith in this wagon wheel, and I could live a perfect, sugary life. And if I put all my hope and all my faith in this wagon wheel, but if this wagon wheel doesn't have the power to help me get to heaven, then I'm pooped. Okay? Like, that's right. But Jesus says that he's the way to the Father. He is the bridge. One way sin is described is when we sin, there's this gap created because God is perfect and we're not. And there's nothing we can do to crawl or climb and get to God in our own strength. But Jesus, because he died, he built this bridge. He became this bridge. And if we go through Jesus, if we follow Jesus, if we commit our lives to Jesus, we can be with the Father. And even though that sounds really exclusive, and that it's like cutting people out of the equation. Sorry, no, you can't go to heaven, you can't go to heaven. It is actually the most inclusive invitation there ever was. And Jesus demonstrated that when he cleared the temple. He wants everybody to know the Father. He wants everybody to know what it means to be forgiven for your sins and to be a new creation so that you can live forever with him. This life is exciting and it's wonderful. It's a gift. I like being alive. I'm quite fond of it. I'm married well. I've got kids I love watching grow up. Okay? But this is a drop in the bucket. I don't want to... I got to use this real quick. Somebody wants to describe it. I think it was Francis Chan. Wants to describe life. How long do you want to live? Till you die. Okay, that's what I think. You're allowed. That's you wish granted. You get to live till you die. Okay, what's the ideal length of years? 80. Okay, let's say 80. I'm going to be generous and give you 100 healthy years. Okay, this is me actually being pathetic. This is me being a goof. So you get to live to be 100. You're healthy. You're going to die in your sleep and die with a smile on your face, and we'll all be good. So that sounds pretty good, right? And let's imagine you've got everything in these 100 years for the rest of your life down to 100 that you could ever want. Doesn't that sound amazing? And let's imagine that this is the timeline of your life from here all the way to here, 100 years, and from whatever point you're at now, I'm sure you're like in your teens or whatever, and all this life is going to be amazing, perfect. Sounds pretty good, right? Okay, let me spell out eternity for you. Eternity keeps going, that's east, west. That's west, right? Eternity keeps going west, past Port Coquitlam, past Vancouver Island, around through to Korea, and it just keeps going all the way around the world, actually, until it comes from Saskatchewan here, and then it just keeps going again that direction, and around the world, and around there. And meanwhile, eternity also goes this way forever around the world. So let's compare this beautiful 100 years to eternity. And what if you could put all of your eggs in one basket? Which one would you care about more? Your life on earth or eternity? Okay? And that is what the Father, the Bible tells us, he goes to prepare a place for us. He's getting a place ready for you to live with him for eternity. And I'll tell you what I know about God. When he gives gifts, he gives good gifts. I'm going to get mushy for a second. I got married when I was 22, 21? When I was 21, 22. Got married in 94. That doesn't help you. Anyways, I think I was 22 years old when I got married. If I were to write a list as a 22-year-old of the things I wanted in life, I'd have some things that are probably appropriate, but I'd have a bunch of things on my list. But now that I've been married for 27 years, I got that right? 27 years, now I know a whole bunch of stuff that he gave me as a gift in my wife that I wouldn't have even known to ask for those things. Like, I didn't know that would be important to me. He knew, and he gives better gifts than I can even imagine. Honestly, I feel the same way about my kids. In fact, I remember Carolee and I were on a holiday, and we were talking this before kids. What do you think our kids may be like? And I remember saying, I just hope they don't get your toes. She has short toes. I have long, elegant, like monkey feet toes, but that's all I remember saying. But God gave us more in our kids. We wouldn't have even known to ask for them. And this is my frame of reference. This is my logicking out why I believe that he gives. When he says he goes to prepare a place for us, it's beyond what we could ever even imagine. And he wants everybody to be there. The reason we're here tonight, the reason we've gathered here tonight is we desperately want you to know about the invitation to be a child of God, to be welcomed into the family. And the only thing that would exclude you is if you just say, you know what, God, I got this, I'm fine without you. I'll do this on my own. And I don't know about you, but when I do things on my own, I don't do super well. I make a lot of mistakes. So that's where I want to kind of camp. I'm going to invite the worship team to come back up. But we did this last week. I don't want to miss a chance to put the invitation out to you again today. And we walked through pretty thoroughly last week. If you would like to say yes to this invitation, God loved the world. He loved it so much, he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him, they will not die. They will not. They won't get to the end of this 100 years and become worm food. They will have eternal life. And this is an invitation. Another part of the Bible talks about how God stands at the door of your heart and he's knocking. And some of you might feel this right now. Not literally feel it, but you might feel this kind of invitation. He wants to be a part of your life. But he's not kicking down the door. This is your choice. He's inviting you to open the door and accept him into your life. And so once again, I'm going to get you to bow your heads, close your eyes. And I want to put this to you. And I don't want, the reason we get you to bow your heads and close your eyes, we don't want there to be a barrier of self-consciousness in your way. We want nothing to be in the way of you making this decision. But if today you can admit that you're imperfect, if you believe that Jesus died so that the price will be paid for all of your sins, and if you want to commit your life to Jesus, I just invite you to raise your hand right now. Keep your eyes closed, head down. All right, last week your birthday was February 20th. Is that right? No, 19th. Your spiritual birthday today. Some of you, your spiritual birthday is February 26th. Yeah, woo. And again, the Bible talks about how the angels throw a party in heaven when people make the decision, because oh man, I know I invited you up maybe a little bit too soon. You can open your eyes, by the way. Just as there's this eternity with heaven, in heaven with the Father, there's also the harsh reality that there's still eternity. And if you're not with the Father, you are separated from the Father. And the Bible talks about it like this, a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's this eternal loneliness, eternal separation, eternal pain and anguish. And we talk about how Jesus has a plan for your life. He wants good things for you. He wants you to be in relationship with the Father. Well, in the same way, the enemy has a plan for your life too. He wants you to die in the most horrific way possible. And some of you have first-hand exposure to the way he wants to kill you. He wants to drag you into the worst of the worst. He wants to see you harm yourself and harm others. That's the enemy's plan for eternal death. I'm just so thankful that some of you have chosen Jesus. And you need to know that when you choose to follow him, he doesn't think twice. He doesn't sit there and go, I don't know. It's like, yes, and it's now. Okay? All right. In this new life, I invite you to stand and let's worship one more time together, and then we'll enjoy some wagon wheels.
By the way, I had a wagon wheel.